If anyone ever tells you the Alpha King controls everything in his kingdom, don't believe them. There was one creature in Blackwood Palace that ignored every rule he made. Olivia Hart woke because something warm was breathing against her hand. For a few quiet seconds, she remained half asleep beneath her blankets, listening to the distant wind circling the palace towers. Moonlight spilled through the tall arched windows of her room, turning the walls silver and blue. Somewhere beyond her door, an old clock ticked softly through the silence. Everything felt peaceful. Then she realized her hand was buried in fur. Olivia's eyes opened. Her breath stopped. A giant silver-gray wolf was asleep beside her. Not outside her room. Not near her bed. In it, one massive paw rested across the blanket. Its head lay only inches from her hand. Thick silver fur glowed beneath the moonlight like fresh snow beneath a winter sky. The wolf looked powerful enough to frighten anyone. Yet it was sleeping so deeply that one ear drooped sideways against the pillow. Olivia stared. The wolf snored softly. She blinked. The wolf continued sleeping. "Well," she whispered, "that seems unusual." One silver ear twitched. Olivia carefully looked toward the door. Locked. She looked toward the windows. Closed. She looked back at the wolf. Still sleeping. "How did you even get in here?" she asked. No answer came. The wolf simply shifted closer. Olivia should have been frightened. Any sensible person would have been. Instead, she found herself studying the creature with growing curiosity. She had always been that way. Ever since childhood, she had collected injured birds, rescued lost kittens, and spent hours talking to animals that never answered back. Books were easier than people. Animals were easier than both. Perhaps that was why fear never fully arrived. The wolf looked less like a predator and more like something that had finally found a place to rest. A cold draft slipped through the room. Olivia shivered. Instantly, without opening its eyes, the wolf moved. Its body shifted between her and the draft. Warmth surrounded her. The cold vanished. Olivia frowned. "Did you just?" The wolf sighed happily. She stared. "You did." The tail hanging over the edge of the mattress thumped once against the bed frame. A laugh escaped before she could stop it. The wolf's ear twitched again. For some reason, that made her smile. Carefully, Olivia tried to slide toward the edge of the bed. She wanted to stand. To think. To determine whether she had lost her mind. The moment she moved away, the wolf opened one eye. Bright silver met bright blue. Neither moved. Then the wolf lowered its head onto her wrist. Not heavily. Not forcefully. Just enough to stop her. Olivia froze. The wolf closed its eye again. "Stay?" The message felt unmistakable. She should have objected. Instead, her heart did something strange. It softened. The giant creature trusted her. Not because she had earned it. Not because she had done anything special. It simply did. And for a young woman who often felt invisible wandering the endless halls of Blackwood Palace, that trust felt unexpectedly precious. "You're ridiculous," she whispered. The wolf's tail wagged once. Olivia eventually drifted back to sleep listening to the steady rhythm of its breathing. For the first time since arriving at the palace, she didn't feel quite so alone. Morning sunlight filled the room. Olivia sat upright immediately. The wolf was gone. The bed was empty. For one hopeful second, she wondered if the entire thing had been a dream. Then she spotted silver fur scattered across her blanket. A knock sounded at her door. "Miss Hart." Olivia recognized the voice instantly. Ethan Blackwood, Alpha King of the Northern Territories. She opened the door. Ethan stood in the hallway wearing dark charcoal and absolute authority. Tall, calm, controlled. Yet the moment his silver eyes landed on the fur scattered across her bed, something flickered across his expression. Not surprise. Recognition. Olivia noticed immediately. "Your Majesty." "Miss Hart." Silence settled between them. Ethan cleared his throat. "I came to apologize." "For what?" Another pause. "A wolf-related incident." Olivia folded her arms. "A giant wolf slept in my bed." Ethan nodded once. "Yes." "You already knew?" "I suspected." "How?" Ethan looked away. "Instincts." Olivia blinked. "Instincts." "Correct. A giant wolf somehow entered a locked room, climbed into my bed, and slept there all night." "Yes." "And your explanation is instincts." "At present." Olivia stared at him. Ethan stared back with the serious expression of a man discussing state policy. Somehow that made the answer worse. Then she noticed something else. Ethan's gaze kept drifting toward the exact spot where the wolf had slept. Not generally. Specifically, the right side of the bed, the pillow, the blanket, the place beside her, as though he already knew. "Will it happen again?" she asked. Ethan hesitated, only for a heartbeat. But she caught it. Probably not. Probably. Most likely not. Those are different answers. Ethan closed his eyes briefly. A fair observation. Olivia almost laughed. The Alpha King looked as though he would rather negotiate peace treaties than answer another question. Then, unexpectedly, his expression softened. Relief flickered across his face. Relief that she was unharmed. Relief that she was smiling. Relief that she wasn't afraid. The moment vanished almost immediately. "If you need anything," Ethan said quietly, "inform palace staff. I need fewer wolves." For the first time, she could have sworn she saw the corner of his mouth twitch. A reasonable request. Then he left. Olivia watched the door close behind him. By afternoon, she convinced herself the incident would never happen again. By evening, she was certain of it. By midnight, she was asleep. At exactly 2:17 a.m., she woke to the sound of something landing softly on her mattress. Olivia opened one eye. Moonlight filled the room. The giant silver-gray wolf stood beside her bed carrying a worn leather-bound book in its mouth. Olivia stared. The wolf carefully placed the book on her blanket. It was her favorite history book from the archives, the one she had spent 3 days repairing. The wolf nudged the book toward her, climbed onto the bed, turned in a circle, and settled beside her with obvious satisfaction. Olivia looked at the book, then at the wolf. "You brought me a gift?" The wolf's tail wagged. Once. Slow and proud. Olivia's heart melted a little. Somewhere else in Blackwood Palace, the Alpha King was probably discovering that both his wolf and his dignity had gone missing for the second night in a row. Olivia woke to sunlight warming her blankets and the sight of her favorite history book resting exactly where the wolf had left it. For a moment, she simply lay there staring at the worn leather cover. The room was quiet, peaceful, ordinary, except for the silver hairs caught between the pages and the strange realization that she was disappointed the wolf had already gone. The thought startled her. She sat upright immediately. "That is ridiculous," she informed herself. It did not help. As she prepared for the day, she found herself glancing toward the door more than once, half expecting a giant silver-gray wolf to wander back into her room, carrying another impossible gift. Nothing happened. Yet when she left for the royal archives, she tucked the book carefully beneath her arm anyway. The palace was already alive with activity. Servants crossed marble hallways carrying trays of breakfast. Courtiers moved through the corridors in elegant clothing. Guards stood watch beside towering windows overlooking snow-covered gardens. Everything seemed normal until Olivia noticed people smiling at her. A maid nearly walked into a wall because she was too busy staring. 2 gardeners paused in the middle of an argument and waved enthusiastically. A young guard actually looked impressed. Olivia slowed her pace. "Something is wrong," she muttered. The moment she entered the royal archives, she knew exactly how wrong. Conversations stopped. Books closed. Heads turned. One librarian accidentally dropped an entire stack of records. Emma Pierce appeared from behind a shelf with the speed of a hunting hawk. "Tell me everything." Olivia sighed. "Good morning, Emma." "The wolf." "There it is." Emma grabbed her arm. "Is it true? Considering I have no idea which specific rumor you mean, probably." Emma gasped. "It is true." Olivia pinched the bridge of her nose. "How does everyone know?" "Olivia." Emma looked genuinely concerned. "The palace kitchens know when the Alpha King skips dessert." That was unfortunately a convincing argument. Emma lowered her voice. "The kitchen staff knows." "Wonderful." "The laundry staff knows." "Fantastic." "The gardeners know." "Amazing." Emma leaned closer. "I think the horses know." Olivia closed her eyes. Somewhere in the distance, her dignity packed another suitcase. The rest of the morning was not much better. Every person she encountered seemed to have questions they were pretending not to ask. By noon, Olivia escaped to a quiet reading room overlooking the eastern courtyard. She settled beside a window and opened her history book, determined to focus on something other than wolves. Unfortunately, her concentration lasted less than 5 minutes. A movement outside caught her attention. Olivia glanced through the glass. There, beneath a snow-covered pine tree in the courtyard below, sat a giant silver-gray wolf. Her breath caught. The wolf was watching the building. Not pacing, not hunting, simply waiting. The moment Olivia appeared at the window, its ears lifted. Its tail swept once through the snow. Something warm fluttered unexpectedly in her chest. The wolf looked absurdly pleased just to see her. "You cannot possibly have been waiting there," she whispered. The tail swept again, as though answering. A familiar voice interrupted her thoughts. "Miss Hart." Olivia turned. Ethan Blackwood stood in the doorway. Tall, composed, impeccably dressed. Yet the moment he noticed where she had been looking, his gaze shifted toward the courtyard. His jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. Below them, the wolf remained sitting beneath the tree. Watching Olivia, Ethan looked at the wolf. The wolf looked back. The silence that followed felt oddly personal. "Your Majesty," Olivia said, "I trust your morning has improved." "It has not," Ethan replied. Olivia blinked. "Really? No." The honesty surprised her enough to make her laugh. Ethan seemed mildly offended by this. "Apparently," Olivia said, "the entire palace knows about the wolf. People enjoy gossip. People are writing theories." Ethan closed his eyes briefly. "That is unfortunate. One theory claims the wolf has chosen me as its emotional support human." For the first time, Olivia saw a genuine flash of amusement in Ethan's silver eyes. It vanished almost immediately. "A creative theory. Another theory claims I am secretly training wolves. Less creative. Do you have anything useful to contribute?" Ethan considered this. "Instincts." Olivia stared at him. "You enjoy saying that now." "Not particularly." "You absolutely do." Before Ethan could respond, a young palace messenger entered carrying several documents. The boy approached Olivia's table. As he stepped closer, a low sound drifted through the partially open window. The messenger froze. Ethan froze. Olivia slowly turned toward the courtyard. The wolf had risen to its feet. It was still calm, still quiet, yet its attention remained entirely fixed on the distance between Olivia and the messenger. The moment the boy stepped back, the wolf relaxed. Olivia looked at Ethan. Ethan looked at the ceiling. "Instincts?" she asked. "Most likely." Yet something in Ethan's expression had changed. Very slightly. His gaze lingered on the wolf longer than before. Then on Olivia. Something tightened in his jaw. Gone a second later. Olivia could not explain why, but the reaction felt important. The rest of the afternoon passed peacefully. Almost. Everywhere Olivia went, she found evidence of the wolf. Fresh tracks in the snow outside the archives. Silver fur near a reading chair. A palace maid reporting that a giant wolf had been seen carrying something through the west corridor. By evening, Olivia found herself smiling whenever she noticed another clue. The realization should have worried her. Instead, it felt strangely comforting. When she finally returned to her room, she expected silence. She expected peace. She expected normal. What she found instead stopped her in the doorway. A charcoal blanket lay folded neatly across her favorite chair. A silver fountain pen rested on her desk. A leather journal sat beside it. Near the fireplace hung a familiar black coat she had seen Ethan wear earlier that week. Olivia stared. Then she noticed another item. And another. None belonged to her. Yet all had been arranged carefully, thoughtfully, almost domestically. Her eyes narrowed. No, she crossed the room. More silver fur waited near the foot of the bed. Absolutely not. The wolf had not simply visited her room. It had organized it. The horrifying truth settled over her. This was no longer random behavior. This was nesting. Somewhere else in Blackwood Palace, Ethan Blackwood was probably enjoying a perfectly normal evening. Unfortunately for him, his wolf appeared to be slowly moving all of his belongings into Olivia Hart's bedroom. Olivia spent the next morning conducting what she privately called an inventory of the invasion. Standing in the center of her bedroom with her hands on her hips, she slowly turned in a circle. The charcoal blanket was still draped across her chair. The silver fountain pen remained on her desk. The leather journal had somehow migrated closer to her bed overnight. None of those items belonged to her. All of them belonged to Ethan Blackwood. "This has gone far beyond unusual," she informed the empty room. The room offered no defense. A few silver hairs near the fireplace seemed suspiciously unapologetic. Olivia sighed and left for work. Unfortunately, Blackwood Palace had decided that today would be significantly worse. The moment she entered the archives, Emma appeared beside her. "How many?" Olivia paused. "How many what? How many of the Alpha King's belongings are currently living in your room?" Olivia nearly walked into a bookshelf. Why does everyone know everything? Emma smiled. Because this palace survives entirely on gossip and baked goods. That was difficult to argue with. Olivia attempted to focus on work, but whispers followed her throughout the morning. Several librarians exchanged knowing glances. One elderly historian asked if wolves preferred biographies or historical fiction. Another requested advice about attracting large protective animals. By lunch, Olivia escaped into the courtyard hoping for peace. Snow covered the gardens in sparkling white drifts. Sunlight reflected from frozen fountains. The air smelled clean and cold. For the first time all day, silence surrounded her. Then a giant silver-gray wolf appeared from behind a hedge and sat directly beside her bench. Olivia looked at the wolf. The wolf looked at Olivia. Neither moved. You followed me. The wolf blinked. Olivia laughed softly. You are becoming a problem. The wolf's tail swept through the snow. A nearby gardener froze mid-step. Two palace maids stopped walking. A noblewoman nearly dropped her gloves. The wolf ignored everyone. Completely. Its attention remained fixed on Olivia. The effect was impossible to miss. Hundreds of people worked within Blackwood Palace. The wolf chose only her. Somewhere deep inside her chest, warmth spread again. Before she could think too much about that feeling, another voice interrupted. Miss Hart. Olivia looked up. Ethan Blackwood approached across the courtyard. He looked composed as always. Elegant. Controlled. Entirely dignified. The wolf immediately stood and walked toward him. Relief crossed Ethan's face for approximately half a second. Then the wolf walked straight past him and returned to sit beside Olivia. The silence that followed was magnificent. Olivia bit the inside of her cheek. Ethan stared at the wolf. The wolf stared at Olivia. One of the gardeners quietly turned away to hide a smile. Ethan looked as though he had just been personally betrayed. Good afternoon, Your Majesty, Olivia said. Good afternoon. His voice sounded perfectly calm, which was impressive considering the circumstances. Your wolf seems happy today. I had noticed. The wolf leaned slightly against Olivia's leg. Ethan closed his eyes briefly. Olivia was beginning to suspect the wolf created at least half of the Alpha King's daily stress. Instincts, she asked. Ethan looked toward the sky. Unfortunately, the rest of the courtyard pretended not to listen. Nobody succeeded. Later that afternoon, Ethan discovered a new problem. It began when he entered his private study and noticed something missing. Specifically, his favorite winter scarf. He searched the room. Nothing. He checked the sitting room. Nothing. He checked his bedroom. Also nothing. 20 minutes later, he found his head butler waiting near the doorway. Has something been misplaced, Your Majesty? Ethan stared. My scarf. The butler nodded with the solemn expression of a man discussing a national emergency. I see. And my second blanket. Unfortunate. And a pair of gloves. Very unfortunate. Ethan narrowed his eyes. You know where they are. I have a theory. Ethan already disliked this conversation. By evening, Olivia returned to her room carrying a stack of books. She opened the door and immediately stopped. The situation had somehow become worse. Much worse. A folded scarf rested neatly across the end of her bed. Dark gray. Expensive. Familiar. Ethan's scarf. Olivia slowly set her books down. Beside the scarf sat a pair of black leather gloves. Near the fireplace waited another blanket. On her desk rested a silver letter opener she was reasonably certain belonged to the Alpha King. No, Olivia said. No, no, no. The room remained stubbornly unconcerned. She walked to the wardrobe and pulled open the door. Then she froze. Several dark coats hung inside. Not one. Several. Olivia stared at them in horror. This was no longer collecting random objects. This was organization. Deliberate organization. The wolf was building something. A home. The realization should have alarmed her. Instead, she laughed. She actually laughed. Somewhere along the way, the entire situation had become ridiculous enough to circle back around to charming. That night, she sat on the floor beside the fireplace reading while snow drifted beyond the windows. Hours passed peacefully. Then the familiar sound of a door opening broke the silence. Olivia looked up. The giant silver-gray wolf entered as if it owned the room. Which, at this point, it probably believed it did. The wolf carried something in its mouth. Olivia lowered her book. What now? The wolf proudly dropped the item into her lap. A blue ribbon. Olivia stared. It was hers. She had lost it nearly 2 weeks earlier somewhere in the palace gardens. The wolf watched her expectantly. You found this. The tail wagged. Once. Then twice. Olivia laughed again. You have been collecting my things too. The wagging intensified. The discovery changed everything. Until now, she had assumed the wolf was simply moving Ethan's belongings into her room. But this was different. The wolf was gathering her things as well. Her ribbon. Her favorite book. Small pieces of her life. The giant creature settled beside the fireplace with obvious satisfaction. Olivia looked down at the ribbon resting in her hand. Something warm and tender settled in her chest. The wolf was building a nest. Not around Ethan. Not around the palace. Around both of them. And somewhere else in Blackwood Palace, Ethan Blackwood was about to open his wardrobe and discover that nearly half his winter clothing had mysteriously disappeared. The next morning began with a crisis. Ethan Blackwood stood in front of an open wardrobe and silently counted to 10. Then he counted again. His favorite winter coat was missing. His second favorite winter coat was missing. 3 scarves had vanished. 2 pairs of gloves had disappeared. 1 blanket had apparently abandoned him entirely. Across the room, his head butler waited with the patient expression of a man who had witnessed many unusual events and had chosen not to question any of them. Your Majesty, the butler said carefully, would you like me to organize a search party? Ethan stared into the wardrobe. For clothing. For your dignity, sir. Ethan closed the doors. Leave. Very good, Your Majesty. The butler departed immediately. Ethan looked toward the window. Somewhere in Blackwood Palace, a certain wolf was creating problems. Meanwhile, Olivia Hart was having a surprisingly pleasant morning. The blue ribbon sat neatly beside her favorite book on the desk. Sunlight poured through the windows of the archives. Snow sparkled beyond the glass. For the first time in weeks, she felt strangely content. Then someone cleared his throat beside her desk. Olivia looked up. A man she recognized from the historical records department stood there holding several books. He was tall, friendly, and wore the easy smile of someone who genuinely liked people. Good morning, he said. You are Olivia Hart, correct? I am. Nathan Reed. He offered his hand. I have heard excellent things about your restoration work. Olivia shook his hand. That is kind of you. It is also true. Nathan placed several books on her desk. I was hoping you could help me identify a few early settlement records. Olivia smiled. I can probably do that. They spent the next hour sorting through old maps and documents. Nathan was easy to talk to. He loved history nearly as much as she did. He asked thoughtful questions. He listened carefully. He laughed often. Olivia found herself enjoying the conversation. Unfortunately, someone else was not enjoying it at all. Outside the archive windows, a giant silver-gray wolf sat beneath a pine tree watching the building. The wolf had arrived 20 minutes earlier. The moment Nathan sat beside Olivia, its ears had flattened. The moment Nathan made her laugh, the wolf stood up. By lunchtime, the wolf had relocated 3 separate times in order to maintain visual contact with Olivia. You know, Nathan said as they walked toward the courtyard, I understand why everyone likes you. Olivia laughed. That is a generous assumption. Not really. Nathan smiled. You make people comfortable. Before Olivia could answer, a familiar silver-gray shape appeared from around a hedge. The wolf marched directly across the courtyard and sat squarely between them. Nathan stopped walking. Olivia stopped walking. The wolf looked extremely pleased with itself. Well, Nathan said after several seconds. That seems deliberate. Olivia tried not to laugh. A little. Nathan studied the wolf. The wolf studied Olivia. Nathan followed the wolf's gaze. I think your wolf dislikes me. He is not my wolf. The wolf immediately rested its head on Olivia's knee. Nathan stared. Olivia stared. The wolf closed its eyes contentedly. Nathan pointed. I feel like that was directed at me. Olivia could not argue with that. The situation became even worse later that afternoon. Nathan joined her in the reading room to discuss several documents. The moment he sat down, the wolf appeared. The giant creature walked over, nudged Nathan's chair approximately 6 inches away from Olivia, and then lay down between them. Nathan looked at the chair, then at the wolf, then at Olivia. I do not think he likes my personality. Olivia laughed so hard she nearly dropped a book. Unfortunately, Ethan witnessed the entire scene. Standing in the doorway, the Alpha King watched Nathan smiling at Olivia while the wolf monopolized her attention. Something uncomfortable settled in his chest. He immediately dismissed it. Irritation, he decided. Pure irritation. The wolf was behaving strangely. Nathan was distracting Olivia from her work. The entire situation was inefficient. It had absolutely nothing to do with jealousy. Nothing at all. Ethan repeated that thought 3 times. It remained unconvincing. Your Majesty, Nathan said as Ethan approached. Good afternoon. Nathan. Ethan's voice remained perfectly calm. Miss Hart. Your Majesty. Olivia smiled politely. For reasons Ethan could not explain, the smile bothered him less when directed at him than when directed at Nathan. That realization bothered him significantly more. The wolf opened one eye and looked at Ethan. Ethan looked back. The wolf appeared smug. Ethan was beginning to suspect his own wolf was mocking him. Everything all right? Olivia asked. Perfectly. You look concerned. I am not concerned. You look concerned. Ethan glanced at Nathan. Nathan wisely pretended to become fascinated by a bookshelf. Perhaps slightly concerned, Ethan admitted. About what? The wolf shifted closer to Olivia. Ethan stared at it. Instincts, he said. Olivia laughed. Nathan laughed. The wolf wagged its tail. Ethan regretted everything. The following day brought fresh complications. Snow had fallen overnight, covering the palace grounds in white. Olivia and Nathan spent the morning cataloging records before taking a walk through the gardens. The paths had been cleared, but patches of ice still lingered beneath the trees. They discussed books, history, and favorite authors. The conversation flowed easily. Behind them, the wolf followed at a distance of approximately 20 feet. Every gardener, servant, and guard they passed immediately noticed. I have never seen a wolf escort someone before, Nathan said. I do not think he trusts me. He trusts almost nobody. Olivia glanced back. The wolf was watching them closely. The moment she smiled, its tail moved. Nathan noticed. I definitely cannot compete with that. Olivia laughed. As they approached a small stone bridge crossing a frozen stream, her boot slipped slightly on a patch of ice. Nothing dangerous. Nothing dramatic. Before she could fully lose her balance, Nathan reached out and gently caught her hand. Careful, he said. Time seemed to pause. Olivia steadied herself. Nathan still held her hand. 20 feet away, the wolf froze. On the opposite side of the bridge, Ethan Blackwood had just stepped into the garden. His silver eyes landed directly on the scene. Nathan holding Olivia's hand. Olivia looking up at Nathan. The wolf staring at both of them. For one perfectly silent moment, nobody moved. Then the wolf started walking toward the bridge. The wolf stopped at the edge of the bridge. Snow drifted quietly through the air. Nathan still held Olivia's hand. Ethan stood on the opposite side of the frozen stream. For one long moment, nobody moved. Then Nathan gently released her hand and stepped back. I think, he said carefully, I may have accidentally offended 2 very important wolves. Olivia laughed despite herself. The tension shattered instantly. The wolf walked forward, circled Olivia once, and sat beside her as though conducting a successful inspection. Ethan closed his eyes briefly. Everything all right? He asked. Perfectly fine, Olivia replied. Good. You seem unconvinced. Not at all. He sounded entirely unconvinced. Snowflakes continued falling around them. What had started as a light snowfall was becoming noticeably heavier. Across the palace grounds, servants hurried indoors. Gardeners began covering equipment. The sky darkened beneath thick, gray clouds. Nathan glanced upward. That weather arrived faster than expected. Ethan followed his gaze. The forecast predicted a storm tonight. A cold gust swept across the bridge. Olivia pulled her coat tighter. The wolf immediately moved closer to her side. Nathan noticed. Ethan noticed Nathan noticing. Nobody commented. By late afternoon, the snowstorm had transformed into something far more serious. Wind howled around the palace towers. Visibility dropped. Several roads leading into the surrounding forests were already impassable. Olivia spent the next few hours helping secure valuable documents in the archives while staff rushed to prepare for the weather. Shortly before sunset, Ethan entered the archive wing carrying a stack of reports. Miss Hart. Olivia looked up from her desk. Your Majesty, I require assistance. Emma immediately looked delighted. Olivia became suspicious. Assistance with what? A collection of historical maps stored at Blackwood hunting cabin. Olivia blinked. The cabin in the northern forest? Yes. During a snowstorm? Ethan glanced toward the windows. The weather was considerably better when this task was scheduled. Emma made a sound that suspiciously resembled a laugh disguised as a cough. Olivia ignored her. And the maps cannot wait? Unfortunately not. Olivia studied him. Ethan studied the nearest bookshelf. The entire conversation felt slightly rehearsed. Nevertheless, an hour later they were traveling through the snowy forest in a covered carriage accompanied by 2 guards. The journey began smoothly. Then the storm intensified. Wind battered the carriage. Snow swirled across the road. Branches groaned beneath the weight of ice. Eventually the driver brought the horses to a stop. "Your Majesty," he called, "we cannot continue safely." Ethan looked through the window. White filled the world outside. Trees had become shadows behind curtains of snow. "The cabin?" he asked. "Less than a mile away." Ethan nodded. "We will proceed on foot." The final stretch took far longer than expected. Snow reached nearly knee-height in places. Wind tugged at coats and scarves. Visibility shrank to only a few yards. By the time the hunting cabin appeared through the storm, Olivia's cheeks were pink from the cold. Warm light glowed behind the windows. Relief flooded her immediately. Inside, the cabin felt like another world. A stone fireplace crackled cheerfully. Thick blankets rested on nearby chairs. Shelves lined the walls. The scent of cedar and burning wood filled the air. Olivia stepped closer to the fire and sighed. "That may be the most beautiful fireplace I have ever seen." Ethan smiled. The expression appeared so unexpectedly that Olivia almost missed it. Most people compliment the architecture. Most people have clearly never been freezing. The smile lingered for a second longer. Then someone knocked at the door. One of the guards entered carrying fresh news. "The roads are closed, Your Majesty." Ethan nodded. "For how long?" "Possibly until tomorrow morning." The guard hesitated. "Maybe longer." Silence settled over the room. Olivia looked toward the windows where snow continued falling in thick white sheets. Ethan looked surprisingly calm. "Then we remain here tonight." A strange flutter appeared in Olivia's stomach. Not fear. Awareness. For the first time since arriving at Blackwood Palace, she would be completely isolated from everyone else. No archives. No gossip. No Emma. No Nathan. Just the storm. The cabin. And Ethan Blackwood. Evening arrived quietly. The storm continued outside, while the fire cast warm golden light across the room. They located the historical maps surprisingly quickly. Afterward, there was little left to do except wait for the weather to improve. Olivia settled into a chair near the fireplace with a book. Ethan occupied another chair across from her while reviewing reports. For a while, neither spoke. The silence felt comfortable rather than awkward. Olivia found herself glancing up occasionally. Ethan always seemed different away from the palace. Less distant. Less guarded. The firelight softened the sharp edges of his expression. He looked less like a king and more like a man carrying too many responsibilities. Eventually, Ethan noticed her watching. "What?" Olivia smiled. "Nothing." That answer is rarely accurate. "I was thinking." "Dangerous." "I was thinking," she repeated, "that you seem more relaxed here." Ethan considered this. "Perhaps. Do you like the cabin?" "Very much." His gaze drifted toward the fire. "My father brought me here often when I was younger." Olivia listened quietly. Ethan rarely volunteered personal information. "Good memories?" she asked. "Some." The answer carried unexpected honesty. For a moment, neither spoke. Wind rattled the windows. Firelight danced across the room. "You know," Olivia said softly, "you are very different from what people say." Ethan looked up. "Is that a compliment?" "Mostly. Mostly." The jury is still deliberating. To her surprise, Ethan laughed. Not politely. Not formally. A genuine laugh. The sound transformed him completely. Olivia smiled without meaning to. Something warm settled between them. Something gentle. Something neither seemed eager to interrupt. Hours later, the storm showed no signs of stopping. Olivia stood near the window studying the swirling snow outside. "I have never seen weather like this." Ethan joined her. Their shoulders nearly touched. The northern forests are unpredictable. Another gust struck the cabin. Olivia shivered. Instantly, Ethan removed his coat. "You are cold." "I am fine." "You are shivering." Before she could argue, he draped the coat around her shoulders. Warmth surrounded her immediately. The familiar scent of cedar and winter air lingered in the fabric. Olivia looked up. Ethan looked away first. "Thank you," she said quietly. "You are welcome." Neither moved. The moment stretched. Then a sudden scratching sound interrupted them. Olivia blinked. Ethan closed his eyes. Please tell me that is not what I think it is. The scratching continued. Olivia opened the door. A giant silver-gray wolf immediately pushed past her and entered the cabin. Snow dusted its fur. Its tail wagged once. Ethan stared. Olivia stared. The wolf shook itself dramatically, scattering snow everywhere, then walked directly to the fireplace and collapsed onto a rug with complete satisfaction. How? Olivia asked. Ethan looked exhausted. Instincts. Olivia laughed. Even now, especially now. The wolf stretched across half the floor and promptly fell asleep. As the evening deepened, Olivia eventually settled on the rug beside the fire. The wolf lay nearby. Ethan occupied a chair only a few feet away. The cabin grew quieter, softer, more peaceful. Olivia watched the flames dancing in the hearth. For the first time in months, she felt entirely safe. Eventually, she glanced toward the sleeping wolf, then toward Ethan. The wolf's silver eyes opened briefly. Ethan looked up from his book at the exact same moment. Silver eyes met hers again. The same shade, the same brightness, the same impossible color reflecting the firelight. Olivia frowned slightly. A strange thought appeared. The wolf blinked. Ethan blinked. Something about the similarity suddenly felt impossible to ignore. Outside, snow continued falling. Inside, a question quietly took root in Olivia Hart's mind for the very first time. Olivia slept lightly that night. The storm continued beyond the cabin walls, but the fire remained warm and steady. At some point she woke and found the giant silver-gray wolf stretched across the rug beside her chair. One ear twitched the moment she moved. The wolf did not open its eyes. It simply shifted slightly closer to where she sat. The gesture was so familiar now that a smile appeared before she could stop it. "You always know when I am awake," she whispered. The tail thumped once against the floor. Across the room, Ethan looked up from the book resting in his lap. Firelight danced across his silver eyes. For a brief moment, Olivia found herself staring. Then she remembered the thought that had followed her all evening. The eyes. The same silver color. The same brightness. The same impossible shade she had never seen on anyone else. Ethan noticed her expression. "What?" he asked quietly. Olivia hesitated. "Nothing. That answer is becoming a habit. Maybe I learned it from you." To her surprise, Ethan smiled. The expression faded quickly, but not before she saw it. Outside, the wind rattled the windows. Inside, the cabin felt smaller than before. Not uncomfortable, just intimate. Like a place built for conversations people usually avoided. The wolf lifted its head and rested its chin on Olivia's knee. She absent-mindedly ran her fingers through its fur. The creature immediately looked pleased with itself. Ethan watched the interaction in silence. Something softened in his expression every time the wolf looked at Olivia. The realization only deepened her growing suspicion. "Can I ask you something?" she said. Ethan nodded. "You can ask. That does not mean you will answer." A fair observation. Olivia glanced down at the wolf before looking back at him. "That wolf has your eyes." Silence filled the room. The fire crackled softly. Ethan did not answer immediately. Instead, he stared into the flames. 1 second passed. Then another. Much longer than normal. Finally, he said, "Silver eyes are not uncommon in the north." Olivia raised an eyebrow. "That is not an answer. It is the answer available at this time." She laughed despite herself. "You sound like a politician. I am a king. The professions occasionally overlap." The wolf sighed dramatically. Olivia could have sworn it sounded disappointed. "Instincts?" she asked. Ethan looked toward the ceiling. For the first time since she had met him, he did not answer immediately. "Perhaps," he said at last. The single word lingered in the air. Olivia noticed. The wolf noticed. Ethan immediately changed the subject. "What did you want to be when you were younger?" Olivia blinked. The abrupt shift caught her completely off guard. "That was subtle." "Thank you." It was not. Yet she answered anyway. "I wanted to travel." Ethan looked genuinely surprised. "Travel?" "I grew up reading stories about distant cities." Olivia smiled at the memory. "I thought I would spend my life exploring the world." "What happened?" "Reality." Ethan laughed quietly. A familiar enemy. Olivia settled deeper into her chair. The firelight painted the cabin in shades of gold and amber. The storm seemed farther away now. "My father used to bring home old books whenever merchants passed through town," she said. "I loved reading about places I would probably never see." The wolf remained perfectly still beneath her hand. Ethan listened without interruption. Sometimes I imagine myself crossing oceans. She smiled softly. Or discovering lost libraries. Lost libraries? Ethan asked. That was the dream. Not treasure. Books are treasure. Ethan considered this. I suppose that explains a great deal. Olivia laughed. What about you? The question seemed to catch him off guard. Ethan looked toward the fire again. When I was young, I wanted to be invisible. Olivia blinked. Invisible. For a day. His voice carried quiet honesty. No responsibilities. No expectations. No one needing anything. Something in his answer touched her unexpectedly. For the first time she saw not the Alpha King, not the ruler of the Northern Territories, but a man who had spent most of his life carrying burdens alone. That sounds lonely, she said softly. Ethan smiled without humor. It was. Silence settled between them. Not awkward. Just honest. The wolf eventually shifted and rested its head across Olivia's feet. Warmth spread through her boots immediately. Comfort instinct. She recognized it now. The wolf always seemed to know exactly when someone needed comfort. The realization brought another thought. The same thought that had followed her for days. The wolf always appeared when Ethan disappeared. The wolf always knew things it should not know. The wolf carried Ethan's belongings. The wolf looked at Ethan as though they shared private conversations. Olivia frowned slightly. Ethan noticed. What are you thinking? I am thinking, she said carefully, that there are several things about this situation that make absolutely no sense. Ethan became very interested in his coffee. That is certainly possible. That wolf knows where I am all the time. Instincts. It steals your belongings. Instincts. It understands sarcasm. Advanced instincts. Olivia laughed so hard she nearly spilled her drink. The wolf wagged its tail. Ethan looked suspiciously pleased with himself. Hours passed. The storm gradually weakened outside. The cabin remained warm, comfortable, safe. Eventually Olivia stood and crossed the room to place another log on the fire. As she reached for the wood, her sleeve slipped slightly. The wolf immediately lifted its head. Ethan stood at exactly the same moment. Both reactions happened so quickly that Olivia froze. Ethan stopped first. The wolf stopped second. For several seconds, nobody moved. Then Ethan slowly sat back down. You were adding wood to the fire, he said. Yes. Good. Olivia narrowed her eyes. The wolf lowered its head again. Neither explanation felt convincing. Much later, after midnight, Ethan rolled up the sleeves of his shirt while organizing maps on a nearby table. Olivia happened to glance in his direction. Her gaze stopped. A small scar marked the inside of his wrist. Nothing dramatic. Just a thin pale line near the base of his hand. Olivia stared. A memory surfaced immediately. Weeks earlier, while brushing leaves from the wolf's fur in the palace gardens, she had noticed the exact same scar in the exact same place on one massive paw. Her breath caught. Slowly she looked from Ethan's wrist to the sleeping wolf beside the fire. Then back again. The scar. The eyes. The timing. The instincts. Every strange detail she had ignored suddenly aligned in a way she could no longer dismiss. Ethan looked up. Their eyes met. For one dangerous moment, Olivia thought he knew exactly what she had realized. The room felt very quiet. The fire crackled softly. The wolf opened one silver eye. And for the first time, Olivia Hart wondered if the truth had been sitting beside her all along. The roads reopened 2 days later. By the time Olivia and Ethan returned to Blackwood Palace, the storm had become the most discussed event of the season. Unfortunately, it was not the weather people seemed interested in. It was them. Olivia knew at the moment she stepped through the palace doors. Conversations paused. Servants suddenly found important reasons to look elsewhere. A pair of young guards standing near the entrance exchanged knowing glances. Even the housekeeper offered Olivia a smile that felt far too informed. Oh no, Olivia murmured. Ethan looked beside her. What? They know. Ethan followed her gaze toward a cluster of palace staff attempting to appear innocent. Know what? Olivia stared at him. Your Majesty. A fair point. Yet even he sounded resigned. News traveled quickly inside Blackwood Palace. By lunchtime, the story had apparently evolved into at least 7 different versions. According to Emma Pierce, one rumor claimed Ethan and Olivia had become trapped on a mountain. Another claimed they had survived 3 days in the wilderness. A third suggested Olivia had personally rescued the Alpha King from a snowdrift. That one is my favorite, Emma announced cheerfully. Olivia dropped her forehead onto her desk. Please stop talking. I cannot. Emma smiled. This is the most exciting thing that has happened all year. Unfortunately, the rumors were only the beginning. The first sign of real trouble arrived that evening. Olivia had just finished organizing a collection of historical records when she received an invitation to attend a formal reception in the West Ballroom. Such events were usually reserved for nobles, visiting officials, and important guests. Olivia almost declined. Then Emma insisted. An hour later, Olivia stood near the edge of a glittering ballroom filled with music, conversation, and elegant gowns. Crystal chandeliers illuminated polished floors. Noble families gathered in small groups. The entire room felt far removed from the quiet comfort of the archives. Olivia immediately wished she were somewhere else. Then she saw her. Victoria Ashford stood near the center of the room, speaking with several council members. She was beautiful in the effortless way wealth often encouraged. Tall, confident, graceful. Her silver gown reflected the light with every movement. More importantly, she looked completely comfortable there, as though she belonged. That is Victoria Ashford, Emma whispered. Olivia looked away. I gathered that. Her family has supported the throne for generations. Emma. Many people expected she would eventually become Luna. Olivia wished Emma would stop helping. Unfortunately, Emma continued. The council absolutely adores her. That information settled heavily in Olivia's chest. Across the ballroom, Victoria laughed at something one of the elders said. She looked elegant, polished, perfect. Everything Olivia was not. A few minutes later, fate decided to make matters worse. Victoria approached directly. Olivia straightened instinctively. Miss Hart, Victoria said warmly. I have heard a great deal about you. Her voice was kind. Her smile was genuine. Somehow that made everything more difficult. Only good things, I hope. Victoria laughed softly. Mostly. Olivia smiled despite herself. The conversation remained pleasant. Victoria asked about the archives. Olivia asked about charitable projects supported by the Ashford family. Nothing rude occurred. Nothing hostile. Yet throughout the exchange, Olivia felt increasingly aware of the differences between them. Victoria belonged in this world. She understood its rules, its expectations, its politics. Olivia understood books. By the time the conversation ended, Olivia felt strangely small. Later that evening, she slipped out onto a quiet balcony overlooking the snow-covered gardens. Cold air greeted her immediately. The silence felt like relief. For several minutes, she stood alone, watching moonlight sparkle across the grounds. Then the balcony door opened behind her. Ethan stepped outside. There you are. Olivia smiled faintly. I was hiding. I noticed. He moved beside her. Neither spoke for a moment. Victoria seems nice, Olivia said eventually. Ethan glanced toward her. She is. The answer should not have bothered her. Yet somehow it did. Olivia looked toward the gardens again. She fits here. Ethan frowned slightly. What does that mean? Nothing. Olivia. She laughed softly. You are spending too much time around me. You have started asking questions. Ethan waited. The patience only made answering harder. People expect someone like Victoria beside a king, Olivia admitted quietly. Not an archivist. Silence followed. When Ethan finally spoke, his voice was calm. People expect many things. Olivia nodded, but the words lingered long after the conversation ended. The following morning brought an even greater problem. Deep within the palace, the Council of Elders held a private meeting. Officially, the discussion concerned political alliances. Unofficially, it concerned Olivia Hart. Ethan attended because refusing would have created unnecessary complications. The meeting lasted less than 20 minutes before patients began to disappear. The situation is becoming a distraction, one elder said. The palace has survived distractions before, Ethan replied. Another elder folded his hands. With respect, Your Majesty, the Omega has attracted considerable attention. Ethan's expression cooled immediately. Miss Hart has a name. Several elders exchanged glances. No disrespect was intended, yet disrespect arrived anyway. The room became very quiet. Across the table, Victoria remained silent, observant, thoughtful. She seemed uncomfortable with the direction of the conversation. Ethan noticed. Unfortunately, the elders continued. The people expect stability. They have stability. They expect a future Luna capable of representing the kingdom. Ethan set down his glass. And Nobody answered immediately. The silence said enough. Meanwhile, Olivia spent the afternoon attempting to focus on work. It did not go well. The ballroom conversation remained trapped in her thoughts. Every time she opened a book, she found herself remembering Victoria, remembering the council members surrounding her, remembering how naturally she belonged. Eventually, Olivia gave up and left the archives early. Snow drifted gently across the gardens. She wandered alone through the quiet paths until she reached a secluded bench beneath a pine tree. Then she sat down and stared at nothing. Several minutes passed. Then a familiar silver-gray shape emerged from between the trees. The wolf approached without hesitation and rested its massive head on her knee. Olivia smiled sadly. You always know. The wolf remained beside her. No questions. No expectations. Just presence. Comfort. Home. Olivia buried her fingers in its fur. Some of the tension eased immediately. For a little while, the world felt quieter. Then, later that evening, everything changed. Olivia was returning a collection of records to a storage wing near the council chambers when voices drifted through a partially open door. She would have kept walking. Then she heard her name. Instinctively, she stopped. Inside, several elders were still meeting. The Omega must leave the palace. Olivia froze. Her heart stopped. Another voice answered. The situation cannot continue indefinitely. The longer she remains, the more complicated matters become. Olivia stood perfectly still outside the doorway. Cold spread through her chest. Inside, chairs shifted. Papers rustled. The conversation continued. But Olivia heard almost nothing after that first sentence. The Omega must leave the palace. Those words echoed through her mind long after the meeting ended. Long after the corridor fell silent. Long after she turned away and walked into the darkness alone. Olivia did not sleep that night. The words she had overheard continued echoing through her mind long after the palace had fallen silent. The Omega must leave the palace. She sat alone beside her bedroom window watching moonlight spread across the snow-covered grounds below. For weeks, Blackwood Palace had slowly begun to feel like home. The archives, Emma, the gardens, the wolf, Ethan. Now every memory felt different. Temporary, borrowed, fragile. By morning, her decision had already been made. She would leave. Not because anyone had ordered her to. Not because she was afraid. But because she could not bear becoming the source of conflict for people she cared about. The realization hurt more than she expected. Quietly, she began packing. Books disappeared into traveling cases. Personal notes were organized into neat stacks. The blue ribbon found its way into a small wooden box. The process should have felt practical. Instead, each item felt like a goodbye. Halfway through packing, a familiar scratching sound appeared outside her door. Olivia froze. The scratching came again. She opened the door. The giant silver-gray wolf immediately entered the room. For once, it carried nothing. No books. No scarves. No gifts. The wolf stopped in the center of the room and looked around. Then it looked at the open suitcase beside the bed. Its ears lowered. Olivia's heart squeezed painfully. Do not do that, she whispered. The wolf walked to the suitcase. Then it lay directly in front of it. Olivia stared. The wolf stared back. No, the wolf remained where it was. You are being dramatic. Nothing happened. You cannot block the suitcase. The wolf placed its head on top of it. Olivia covered her face with both hands. You absolutely can block the suitcase. The wolf closed its eyes. Hours later, Ethan Blackwood learned two things almost simultaneously. First, Olivia had heard the council meeting. Second, Olivia was leaving. The news arrived from Emma Pierce, who stormed into his office with enough determination to frighten several guards. You need to fix this. Ethan slowly stood. Explain. 5 minutes later, he was already crossing the palace at a pace that forced his advisors to jog behind him. Something cold and unfamiliar had settled in his chest. Fear. Real fear. Not political concern. Not responsibility. Not instinct. Fear. When he reached Olivia's room, he stopped abruptly. The door stood partially open. Inside, suitcases rested beside the bed. Books had disappeared from the shelves. The room already looked emptier. The wolf still lay in front of the largest suitcase. Refusing to move, Olivia sat beside the window folding clothes. Neither noticed Ethan immediately. For one painful moment, he simply stood there staring. Then Olivia looked up. Silence filled the room. You are leaving. It was not a question. Olivia lowered her gaze. Yes. Ethan stepped inside. Why? She laughed softly. The sound held no humor. I think you know why. Ethan did know. The knowledge made everything worse. The council does not decide who stays in this palace. Maybe not. Olivia carefully folded another sweater. But they made their feelings very clear. Ethan washed her hands. They were steady. Too steady. The calmness hurt more than anger would have. You should have spoken to me. Olivia looked up. About what? For the first time, emotion cracked through her composure. About the fact that half the kingdom thinks I do not belong here? Ethan had no answer. Because the truth was that she had heard exactly what he had feared she would hear. Olivia. Her name left his mouth quietly. Gently. The wolf immediately lifted its head. So did Olivia. Something changed in the room. Ethan rarely used her name. Somehow hearing it now felt important. I never wanted you to feel unwelcome. Olivia smiled sadly. I know. The answer should have reassured him. Instead, it made the ache in his chest worse. Later that afternoon, word spread throughout the palace. Olivia Hart was leaving. The reaction surprised everyone. Emma threatened to resign dramatically 3 separate times. Nathan looked genuinely disappointed. Several librarians organized a farewell gift basket. Even the kitchen staff sent pastries. Yet the most noticeable reaction belonged to the wolf. The giant silver-gray creature spent the entire day following Olivia everywhere. If she entered the archives, it waited outside. If she walked through the gardens, it followed 10 feet behind. If she stopped, it stopped. By evening, even the palace staff looked heartbroken. I think he knows, Emma whispered. Olivia glanced toward the wolf resting beside a hallway window. Knows what? That you are leaving. Olivia did not answer. Because she suspected Emma was right. That night, a formal dinner brought together nobles, council members, and important guests. Olivia attended only because refusing would create questions. She spent most of the evening avoiding attention. Then Victoria Ashford approached her. May I sit here? Olivia nodded. Victoria settled into the chair beside her. For several moments, neither spoke. Finally, Victoria sighed. You are leaving. Olivia blinked. How does everyone know everything? The palace is terrible at secrets. Despite everything, Olivia laughed. Victoria smiled softly. Then her expression became serious. For what it is worth, I think you are making a mistake. Olivia stared. That is unexpected. Probably. Victoria glanced across the room toward Ethan. He was speaking with several officials, but looked distracted. Most people see a king. Olivia followed her gaze. And Victoria smiled sadly. I see a man who looks miserable whenever you leave a room. Olivia's breath caught. Victoria, you are not the problem. The words settled deeply inside her heart. Before Olivia could answer, Victoria stood. Good luck, Miss Hart. Then she walked away. Across the ballroom, Ethan looked toward Olivia at the exact same moment. Their eyes met. Neither looked away. Hours later, long after midnight, Olivia carried her final suitcase through the palace entrance. Snow drifted gently beneath the moonlight. The carriage waiting outside would take her to the nearest town before sunrise. Her chest felt unbearably heavy. The wolf stood beside the doors, watching, waiting. Olivia knelt and buried her fingers in its fur one last time. I am going to miss you. The wolf pressed its head against her shoulder. For several seconds, neither moved. Then Olivia stood. She picked up her suitcase and walked toward the waiting carriage. The wolf followed. She reached the bottom step. The wolf followed. She opened the carriage door. The wolf stopped directly in front of it, refusing to move. Olivia laughed through suspiciously bright eyes. Not this again. The wolf remained planted firmly in place. Behind them, the palace doors opened. Footsteps echoed across the snow. Olivia turned. Ethan stood beneath the lantern light. For a moment, nobody spoke. The world seemed to hold its breath. Then Ethan finally did the one thing he had avoided for months. Olivia. Her name carried across the quiet night. Not Miss Hart. Not a title. Not distance. Just Olivia. And for the first time since arriving at Blackwood Palace, she heard exactly how much it meant. Olivia stood beside the carriage with snow drifting softly around her. Ethan's voice still echoed through the night. Olivia. Just her name. Nothing else. No title. No distance. No walls. For a moment, neither moved. The wolf remained planted firmly between Olivia and the carriage door as though refusing to participate in this departure. Ethan slowly crossed the snow-covered courtyard until only a few feet separated them. The palace lanterns cast warm golden light across the winter darkness. "Do not leave," he said quietly. Olivia's heart tightened. "You cannot ask that." "Why not?" She laughed softly. "Because you know why." Ethan looked down briefly. For perhaps the first time since she had met him, he seemed completely unsure of himself. "I know what the council said." Olivia swallowed hard. "Then you know this is the right decision." "No," the answer came immediately. "It is not." Silence settled between them. The wolf lifted its head and looked from one to the other. Ethan took another step forward. "You heard people discussing what they wanted." His silver eyes met hers. "You never heard what I wanted." The words struck harder than she expected. Olivia looked away first. "Does it matter?" "Yes." His voice was firm now. Honest. "It matters very much." The wolf stood and moved quietly to Ethan's side. For a second, Olivia saw them together beneath the lantern light. The same silver eyes. The same expression. The same impossible familiarity. The scar. The timing. The instincts. Every clue she had collected finally pushed her past uncertainty. "You should have told me," she whispered. Ethan closed his eyes briefly. "I know." The eyes. Olivia looked at the wolf. Then at Ethan. The scar. Neither spoke. "The way he always appeared when you disappeared." The wolf sat quietly. Ethan's shoulders lowered. The fight seemed to leave him all at once. "I was afraid." Olivia stared. Of all the answers she expected, that was not one of them. "Afraid?" Ethan laughed softly. "Do you know how ridiculous that sounds? You are the Alpha King." "Exactly." His smile carried no amusement. "I have spent my entire life knowing what to do." His gaze never left hers. "Then I met you." The night seemed very still. "I was afraid that if I told you the truth too soon, you would leave." Olivia glanced toward the packed carriage. Ethan followed her gaze. Unfortunately, that strategy did not work particularly well. A laugh escaped before she could stop it. The wolf's tail thumped once against the snow. Ethan looked relieved simply hearing her laugh. "So," Olivia said softly. "The wolf." Ethan looked down at the giant silver-gray creature beside him. The wolf looked entirely unapologetic. "The wolf," Ethan confirmed, "has been stealing your belongings." "Yes." "My belongings." "Yes." "And moving your entire wardrobe into my room." Ethan sighed. "Yes." Olivia folded her arms. "That was you." "Technically, it was the wolf." "There is no technically anymore." "A fair point." The wolf looked extremely pleased with itself. Olivia shook her head. "All this time you blamed instincts." "To be fair, instincts were involved." "Still instincts." Ethan smiled. A real smile. Warm and unguarded. "Not exactly." Something in Olivia's chest finally settled. The last missing piece clicked into place. She looked at the wolf again. Then at Ethan. Somehow they had always felt like the same safe place. The palace doors opened behind them. Several figures emerged into the courtyard. Emma, Nathan, Victoria, members of the council. Apparently half of Blackwood Palace had discovered tonight's drama. Olivia groaned. "Of course they are all here." "Instincts," Ethan said automatically. She laughed. Across the courtyard, one of the elders stepped forward. "Your Majesty." Ethan raised a hand. The elder immediately stopped speaking. The entire courtyard fell silent. Ethan looked toward the council, then toward Olivia, finally back to the council. "There seems to be some confusion." His voice carried easily through the winter air. "Allow me to clarify." Every eye in the courtyard focused on him. "Miss Hart belongs in this palace." No one interrupted. "She belongs because she is valued." Ethan's gaze found Olivia again. "She belongs because she is wanted." Olivia's breath caught. "And she belongs because I have chosen her." The silence that followed felt enormous. Then something unexpected happened. Victoria smiled. Not sadly. Not bitterly. Genuinely. She crossed the courtyard and stopped beside Olivia. "It took him long enough," she said quietly. Olivia stared. Victoria shrugged. "Some of us noticed months ago." Nathan laughed. Emma looked ready to cry. Several librarians in the background actually did cry. The council members exchanged resigned glances. One elder cleared his throat. "Well," another elder sighed. "That could have gone worse." Ethan looked suspiciously relieved that nobody intended to argue. The wolf walked directly to Olivia and leaned against her side with unmistakable satisfaction. "I think he believes he won," Olivia said. "He did," Ethan admitted. Winter gradually gave way to spring. The palace changed with the season. Snow melted. Gardens bloomed. Life moved forward. The council eventually accepted what everyone else had already understood. Emma became even more unbearable. Nathan remained a good friend. Victoria continued terrifying politicians while charming everyone else. And Olivia stayed. Several weeks later, she opened the door to her room after a long day in the archives and immediately stopped. A familiar black coat hung beside the fireplace. Another rested across a chair. 2 scarves occupied her desk. A pair of gloves sat beside her favorite book. Olivia closed her eyes. No, behind her, Ethan appeared in the doorway. What happened? Olivia pointed dramatically at the room. Your wolf happened. Ethan surveyed the evidence. The giant silver-gray wolf lay proudly beside the bed. Its tail wagged once. Interesting, Ethan said. Do not encourage him. I would never. Olivia picked up a scarf. He moved half your wardrobe in here again. Ethan looked thoughtful. Instincts. Olivia laughed. The wolf wagged harder. Sunlight poured through the windows. Warmth filled the room. Home. After everything they had survived, that was what remained. And for the first time, neither Ethan nor his wolf had any intention of leaving.